call this meeting to order. In here, thank you to public for being here.
Deborah Camp. Here. Keith Bloomendale.
Here.
Nan Tappan.
Here.
Jerry Kennedy. Mike Hoffer.
Here. Has everyone?
Motion to accept minutes as presented.
Okay. Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Staff report on recent council meetings, Mr. Parvin?
It's actually one of those months where the council meeting comes after the P&Z meeting, so
All right.
will be
That'll be
next
easy.
Tuesday.
Sure. What staff has been up to since last month, we've issued 19 permits for repair and additions, 11 new construction permits, demo permits, and 18 certificate of occupancy. So we've done 18 finals for homes, and the building inspector has 190 building inspections in that time. Code enforcement, we've had 15 violations and 4 letter of violations. And also I would note that our code enforcement officer, Chris Lewis, actually resigned. So we haven't, code enforcement's been a little short this past couple weeks. Also this time of year, kind of backside of summer, our new businesses, died down. We did have one though, A+ Nails on 245 North Lake Park Boulevard. Under renovation for quite some time, but now they opened up. Also, they have started ground breaking with the foundation for 102 Cape Fear Boulevard, which is a 12-unit condo building with a restaurant on the ground floor. So it's right there at Cape Fear and Canal Drive. And that's today. We have fencing around. Finalized our last house for the FY15 FEMA elevation grant at 314 Wilson Avenue. We are in the process of starting FY16 with 2 houses that as of now, 813 Canal Drive and 1708 Carolina Beach Avenue North. And FEMA did announce for the FY this year at 18, the grant will be available in October. So now we are starting to identify houses to elevate for this. Right, that house, was originally built in 1954.
Yeah.
And it is on pilings now.
Round.
It is.
Is it just going
Correct.
qualified for somebody who is?
Yes, so it is elevated, but it's not elevated to the design standard, and it has had been damaged. Flood waters has gotten into the home, so it qualifies.
Okay.
So we may only end up elevating it 3 foot, but it will be an elevation. Based off your historical flood. Doesn't have to be you that about it. It's just historic. Trying to fix the problem. We did August 1st. We had a workshop on Harper Avenue streetscape. contractor come in and facilitate the workshop to go over some options for streetscape along Harper Avenue, and the first two blocks to Lumberton Lake Park Boulevard, where there's a lot of homes that are right on the property line, and historically people are parking in the right of way. So the one design that they came up with was keep the median, but really landscape the median, drop the curb where it could handle stormwater, but narrow it, plant street trees, have 2 lanes of traffic, and provide parking in that area. And also incorporate a multi-use path similar to what's on Cape Fear Boulevard, going all the way down Harper Avenue, connecting it to the existing use path on the west side of Dow Road, by where the is not in this proposal is there's no median parking. It is all that is yet to be determined. That's council is going to have a work 15th of August to govern options, and there some of those discussions will come.
Actually, that'll be a public workshop on August 15th for our Phase C, which is Harper Avenue, and a lot of those streets just north of there, Goldsboro, Lumberton, Wilson, and there's one little block in Raleigh there that we're going back with Phase C. So that'll be the design plans as they are to date, laid out with the engineers, staff here to answer questions from the public. So if you live in that area, you got a notice. If you're a property owner, you got a notice in the mail. If you're a resident, you got a door hanger. And of course, we advertise on Facebook and press releases and our website as well. And we'll do the same thing for on the 16th. Is that same thing for the north end, which will be Florida, Georgia, Virginia, all those streets up there on the north end. Will be getting a new, all new utilities as well. So we're working with them, and then once we have those workshops for Harper Avenue, we'll go back with the traffic and engineer that's doing our streetscape and stormwater design. He will be at the August 28th Town Council workshop. Is when the council will first have a hearing, and hopefully at that point we can move forward with the plan. He has to have, Kimley Horn has to have the plan back to us by October, and we have to have it to the state for permitting. We have a low interest loan through the state for the improvements, water and sewer improvements. That has to be in by November, early November. And we have, if you go on our website, the main page, if you click on there's a big icon, 4 big icons in the middle of them. One of them is projects. If you click on that icon, and the first projects at the top are the Phase C, Harper Avenue, and North End improvements. So it's about $12 to $14 million worth of improvements. So it's a huge project for the town over the next few years that we'll be working on.
And also, just want to let you know we'll be having a King Tide event this weekend, which normal tides we'll be experiencing. It'll be in the evening is the highest tide for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and we'll have extreme low tides as well. Like some flooding on Canal and also Freeman Park. Special events, we have a Wamparama Body Surf Championship. This is something they've done in the past couple of years. It's pretty much where it's a body surfing competition, so you just ride the wave in. Avenue. We also, that same day, is a Rock the Beach, which is essentially the beach music festival, but with rock music. So there'll be cover bands. September 8th, we'll have a bike rodeo at the Recreation Center behind us. And also on that day, the Heart of Hope 5K race will be happening at the Cape Fear Gazebo. We continue having our weekly events through Labor Day, but they'll be coming to a close shortly. So, quiet Thursday nights at 9 o'clock. And the last movie at the lake is September 2nd. But the farmers market, it goes until the 28th of September, I believe. Questions about anything that's going on?
Moving on to our discussion item. We had 2 people sign up for public for our discussion item, which is about the trees. Yes, so we'll wait till we get into that and you guys come up and speak on it. Okay. Ordinance, is that you, Jeremy?
Yes, sir. Chairman, Commissioners, good evening. This is a discussion item that came about with Councilman Garza requested that this commission discuss the landscape ordinance to address tree preservation. And issue that was about was in residential lots, and when there was a lot that's covered with trees, and then all of a sudden you ride by it and it's clear cut. Residential lots have a tree preservation ordinance. Here's just a couple of examples of lots that they've come through and cleared it to get ready for building. Current language, we do require buffer yard landscaping for commercial or a family, but it excludes single or 2-family homes. Commercial lots are not required to preserve trees on site, but they are required to have a buffer yard around the perimeter of the property. Preservation language, if vegetation exists, they do get credit and is encouraged for the buffer yard requirement. And here's just an example of a commercial, the ABC store. 1 and 2 family, they are required to mulch, seed, or sod, protect it from erosion from occurring. Stabilize the soil. And as you see in this picture, it's not required, but we do see development providing or planting trees after the development. A couple of palm trees, a crepe myrtle, some shrubs, but they are planting shrubbery and landscaping. They do in these lots. They did originally clear cut them, but it's almost to start at a clean slate, and then once their construction is finished, the building, they go back and sod the property and plant trees for the landscaping. We did talk about this in 2005 with Town Council and the Planning and Zoning Commission about preserving trees. And the language that was created at that time was 1 tree for each 2,000 square foot of lot area. This would give you, for a 5,000 square foot, 3 trees. Planning and zoning had some reservation about requiring trees, and ultimately what was adopted was the town would encourage, but it the reasons at that time stated is if you have a 5,000 square foot lot, time you build a house, you know, can take up 40. Then you put in a driveway, which you could have a 35-foot width driveway, normally garage doors under the house. Then, you know, typically there's a patio or something in the rear of the property. Shower. Have an HVAC on the side that is allowable into the setback as well. If it's a duplex, they'll have, you know, HVAC side. Typically, developers are not just creating a box, and there are some bump outs that are allowed into the setback. Also, we've issued, I think, last 2 weeks, was it 12 fence permits? So we're seeing a lot of fence permits, but so time you build a fence on your yard, and then you have your water and sewer lines going right away to the house. So you have to tell for those lines that you're not disturbing them with the roof. Other item that was mentioned at that time was, well, if you have a vacant lot, then had no trees. I didn't take down any trees. Are you requiring me to put? We have a number of lots that are vacant that have no trees. I'm not bringing this up to sway you one way or another. I'm just illustrating of what the conversation was at that time. State authorization, it does allow a community authority to preserve trees on private lots, except if it's in conjunction with activity. So, 2014, there was a bill in the General Assembly that would prohibit from a town preserving or requiring plantings on. I looked at Carolina Beach and the vacant lots. So right now, or as a couple months ago, we had 800. In that area, looked at how many of those vacant. So here's broken down by, on the top is the commercial districts of this chart. The bottom is residential. So if you just circle the residential and you looked at percentage of undeveloped lots, the total number of lots is 17% of our. Out of the time in 2005, they talked a lot about 5,000 square. Have lots that are larger than 5,000 square foot. I looked at those compared to the area. 1,000 square foot is the minimum lot size. 75% of those lots are 5,000 square foot of the total residential. Really are specifically the majority. Tree preservation kind of comes in the form of two requirements. One requirement that you can look at is, okay, are we really the preserving of trees? That is, yes, you know, you understand you're going to have to just keep it at a minimum. How many trees can first are looking at, is it feasible to? Second one is, okay, we've lost trees. may or may not have an ordinance to preserve trees, but do we want to require trees? This can be based on the number of trees that you've removed. Several things you can look at. Or it could be similar to what ordinance that they had in 2005 that they came up with. Those are a couple of options. And I gave a couple of written out options for ordinance that we had in 2005. The caliber was 4 inches. That was so. Clearing, grading, earth disturbing activities shall not occur on any site, until we have a preservation. You have a site plan that would identify the types and locations of existing trees. Would be removed and it shall be replaced with an existing tree. Then you would need to identify, okay, when can a tree be associate circulation required. Then you got to think about, well, there's other reasons trees need to be removed other than development. Have some exemptions built into your ordinance if you're utility service. Vision of proposed or existing right-of-way. It is in the welfare of the general public that the tree be removed. So another option is must provide tree plantings at the end of construction, but that's where you could get into your another option you could consider is, well, we just kind of keep the ordinance, how we. Trend is, yes, there are some we are not. We are just keeping the conversation open for discussion. There is no hard action. This is we're just looking for direction. Type president.
We talked to, or council gave us direction to bring this back for discussion. So regardless of what happens here tonight, what I'll do is give council an update on non-agenda items next Tuesday night. And it'll either be you discussed it and decided that we're going to leave everything the same. You discussed it and gave us direction that, or you gave us direction to come back with a code. So at that point, if the direction we get tonight is, hey, we don't want to change anything, then Tuesday night council will be like, no, we really want to see something. So we don't have that code in front of you tonight. We just want to fill out from you as planning board what you might want to see in a tree preservation code.
Well, there was a,
No, we had had the discussion earlier, and I think
I think you're on usually when we start an ordinance, you start with the purpose. And you'd want to start with, hey, why do we want to have this ordinance? Right now, we just got direction from council to, hey, they want to start the discussion.
I got a question as it pertains to how an ordinance like this might look, Jeremy, as far as existing homes and existing trees on existing properties might look. If somebody has a tree they want to remove, how would that look to them as far as what they would be required? Or, I mean, how would, I didn't find anything that said something for everything, how that would be treated.
And that is, you know, up for discussion. Is this only applies to new construction, or are we looking for live oak in somebody's yard and they're ready to, you know, tired of the maintenance or for whatever reason, or a pine tree that they want to get, that
Have a tree permit for every,
have this town-wide?
and everything you brought up was, knowing what, I think you mean that you're going to require or possibly require tree surveys for every lot before a home can be built would have to be a part of that ordinance.
That would be if you're wanting to preserve trees and know what you have on that site. To, you know, if you're trying, here's what I have to take down. You know, if it's a certain caliber, then that would take documentation and a survey.
I did want to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Jeremy, you said that of all the lots that are vacant, that was only 17% were residential. Is that
Correct.
correct? So we could be discussing creating an ordinance that only involves 17% of buildable residential lots.
And it seemed like that was the concern that I heard briefly from a council member, was that, you know, it was that these lots that are just getting clear cut for development. That's why I identified how many lots are we, you know, are we
And 75% of that 17% is a 5,000 square foot lot.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions before we open it up? Actual quasi judicial, so I don't have to do anything. Anybody in the public want to stand up and speak on this topic? Please state your name and address for the record when you come up. We know you can.
We know you can. Yep, exactly.
10 feet on a lot of them. Yep.
Yeah, ballpark.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Technical difficulties.
No matter how hard you push that button.
Did you fix that, Miles?
Please bear with us.
Remember, there's no bad employees, only bad assistant managers.
Got something going.
Okay. Looks like we're back in business. Would somebody else like to stand up and speak about tree preservation in Carolina Beach? State your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Ethan Crouch. I live at 932 Sea Ridge Lane, Carolina Sands. I did send some written comments in to some of the council, or commissioners, excuse me. But I'll just restate those for those that didn't perhaps get those comments today. Excuse me. Dear P&Z members, I'm encouraged to hear that council staff and P&Z board are considering changes to the existing landscape ordinance in effort to preserve our trees. After hearing about these considerations, there has been an outpouring of community input and support for these efforts. I hope these desires will encourage us all to continue to work on crafting a policy that would be best for our unique island. Other nearby communities have instituted tree preservation policies with great success to preserve the character of their communities, as well as a long list of the environmental benefits trees provide. Option 1 is a good starting point to consider for further refinement in the preparation of a final ordinance for council consideration. I would note some components to option 1 could be changed to better facilitate lot development and offer landscaping options to homeowners and builders. In particular, a requirement to save trees outside the construction footprint at a 4-inch caliper and over 10 feet is stringent. A tree of 4-inch caliper or 10 foot tall is generally not considered a mature tree or part of the existing overstory tree canopy. I believe the intent of a tree preservation ordinance would be to save the mature overstory tree canopy to the best extent possible. These trees offer the most benefits for CO2 reduction, shade, habitat, and erosion reduction, to name a few. Accordingly, overstory trees are generally considered to be approximately 20 feet tall. The caliper of a mature tree varies on species and can be difficult to define. However, a minimum, most native species in our area reach 20 feet tall. They're at least 8 inches and maybe even larger than that. So 4-inch requirement is I think a little. Additionally, requiring a 1-for-1 replacement of trees to cut down within the building footprint is excessive given the average lot size in Carolina Beach. I think the intent for this ordinance should be considered in conjunction with what trees are saved outside of the building footprint, so that you're looking at more of a net tree perspective as opposed to just a mathematical 1-for-1. And accordingly, you can take that same type of math that's in option 2, where we have some ratio that's preservation of tree. So be it 1 tree per 2,000 square feet or 2 trees per 2,000 square feet. And so you look at that, what trees were saved, what have been cut down, and if maybe you're clearing, you don't have to actually plant any additional trees. You're meeting that overall. We should define 4C better in option 1. This is a little bit ambiguous. That could lead to disputes later. I think we should have a long list of definitions. I think the Oak Island ordinance is a great example. They really spent a lot of time digging into defining certain provisions. That'll lead to a lot less disputes later on, and we certainly don't want that. Another thing I think we should define better is the construction footprint. In option 1, construction footprints ambiguous. We need to also, as the other speaker had said, allow for some provisions for setbacks within for constructability purposes. And finally, I think any tree preservation policy should address heritage trees. Heritage trees are something very passionate to me, but I think any ordinances that address tree preservation need to speak specifically to doing everything we can to protect heritage trees, whether they would get relocated or I offered a good resource, comments for examples of heritage trees and how heritage trees are defined. And I'd encourage you all to review that as well as staff. And in closing, I look forward to seeing what our creative group of people can do to protect these amazing resources and also facilitate construction and homeowner landscaping preferences. But it's very good to have a townwide ordinance so everyone is required to play on the same field. And the previous ordinance effort of voluntary action just didn't work. And that's why staff had repealed it previously. So I think these perspectives can be incorporated into what residential lots we have left, as well as commercial space. And I think we should also try to highlight preservation and replanting of native species trees. They're going to live longer. They're going to offer the most best environmental benefits to various wildlife. They're going to be drought tolerant. A lot of palms died this past winter. I'm sure everybody's seen those around the island. Everybody's got their palm trees that look nice until it gets cold and then they die. So with the emphasis, I think, on preserving and replanting native species will be the best policies for our community. Thank you very much.
Ethan, I just wanted to thank you. I'll try to be. I search social media about the meetings. I come in with an open mind, but I did see that you indicated you didn't have all of our emails, and they are public on the town website. Pop one to Jeremy or Ed, pop it to us. I would appreciate that, because in case, you know, I've got another meeting or something and I don't have time, because what you gave was very valuable. And just extend to you that they are public emails, and it's our job to listen to all those comments. And I would like to be able to sort of have something in mind from the public before I came in. Thank
Absolutely. Absolutely. Will do. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
you. Thank you.
Public would like to stand up and speak. Come on.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is John Jarvis, 300 Columbia Avenue, Carolina Beach. Miles, Ed, and Jeremy both how guilty I am on cutting trees and maximizing, build a custom house for a client. They want to maximize the footprint, maximize everything. So I'm guilty as the next builder on the island. But also have assimilated to building in Harbor Island, building in Oak and Fall, building Autumn Hall, where they do full agreement with what Ethan was saying with the heritage trees. You know, you can't, I'm building one right now in Harbor Island where the tree canopy, it's an old cedar tree. I mean, it's touched. It's really not as bad as you would think it is if there is a policy in play during the design process, as you're submitting plans, as the town is going through. Go ahead and mark the trees, go ahead and protect the heritage trees, and just preserve what we have. I think the neat thing about our island is, you know, late, but we do have an opportunity to protect and preserve what, I mean, that's why we're all here, is because we care, and that's how I view it. It's, we're real estate agents, a lot of us, and put a good policy in motion to protect what we have, add where we need to, and also option 3, Jeremy, about the landscaping. We do have a landscape ordinance now, right? Don't we have a minimal?
We do. It just doesn't apply to single or two family.
Yeah, it would, you know, that's the one thing I guess a gripe with the government, and what I would agree with the first speaker is, you know, you add these rules, and some of the rules that are already in play aren't even enforced. It would be nice to enforce some of the landscaping, because I have noticed some of the new construction things where we have such an impact with our stormwater, especially the last 15 inches that we had last couple weeks. a lot of the people who have already moved in the house, I mean, I just see their, out of their soil and stuff just rolling down the street. You know, it'd be nice to have stabilization prior to move in or CO. I don't know how that could be maybe enforced better, but definitely in agreement with Ethan on the heritage trees. I'd like to see those protected, and thank you guys.
John? Anyone else from the public like to speak?
For what's an example of what? Bike paths, streetscapes, greenery all over, which we didn't have before. So that's a really big difference in, depending on what your goal to save a tree is. You know, if you want it to look nice and come in, visitors really don't care what kind of tree it is. They like green. We that have been here for years care about the maritime forest and what used to be and the heritage trees, which to me is a different goal and objective, and maybe should be addressed in a different avenue. In a having concrete on this island because we have enough. We are actually making, as you saw, and Jeremy can put that back up. Sidewalks, there's grass, so, and are there other ways? Because I, for one, don't want government telling me anymore about what I can do with my private property.
I've got a couple of notes that I made, and I'll be brief. First, as a builder, like John said, you know, I've built maybe 15 homes on 5,000 area, and I try to save a tree on every one of them. I'm just not really feasible. Causing a hindrance to possible future damage to the home, having to reshape a driveway, things to that nature that you just, not a lot of green space on these lots as it is. They have a 10-foot yard, most of them. And it's just not easy, although I'm all for, having said that, I'm all for trying to save a tree whenever we can, because a couple of points. 75% of the remaining lots being on 5,000 square foot lots. I'll face the fact that they're going to be developed. I'm not for saying there's a certain tree on a lot and that renders it useless. Only 17% lots vacant. Comment made about I've already been able to. Values of different lots because of that. You know, I don't. Not understanding what a heritage tree is, so maybe if somebody. Touch.
What God put up.
That's every tree on the lot.
The type.
Guess that's
the
where I just didn't
maritime-
understand.
The maritime part. Now,
I'm not mistaken, there are some breeds of palm trees that are indigenous to this area. Is that not correct? Not your pencil palms that come from Florida.
So when you drive down, you drive.
Meadows and whatnot. Some other couple of points real quick, and then I'll open up to everybody else, was the tree survey obviously costs the builder more money. I think it was just last month. Surveys for elevation certificates that we don't. Pose that additional cost. I thought it was a good idea. Asked earlier, existing homes that may have a nuisance tree, how are they going to be treated? So there's a whole lot of thoughts and things that need to be considered. I think going down this path, as Ethan said, don't necessarily disagree that we go down a path. I'm just not sure what the outcome. Planting trees. What about planting trees in the town right away? You know, the first 20 feet of that house on that picture right. And you get into power lines, you know.
Well, that is something that I heard what Jerry said is maybe we address it a different way, and that's something we did on Cape Fear and we'll do on Harper. So definitely where we have those larger right of ways.
Yeah.
And so there are areas where we can identify and
And some of our other back roads, like Clarendon, has a 90-foot wide.
Yes, sir.
right-of-way, so there's a lot of there that isn't really theirs, so to speak. There's just so many variables that I see coming into this and listening to speak, and we do appreciate you guys doing that, and I appreciate the information you sent, Ethan. It was almost. The other thing I looked at was I started looking briefly. Again, I didn't have a lot of time. GIS in Oak Island. What I could tell, their smallest lots were 0.15 acres. Looked like roughly half of their lots were that size, and the other half were twice. A very stringent tree policy there, and I haven't had a chance to fully research that, and I've not experienced it. But our lots are 1/10 of an acre, 50%. Targeting 5,000 square foot lots with any. And that's left to happen. The other point I would bring up is we do have the Matsu, we do have the state park. It's never going to go away. It's not going anywhere. Not going to be a concrete jungle.
Is it possible? Could we at least our historical making having less carbon dioxide and better oxygen, and I am too. So could we? No. I would like.
But to say, okay, we're just not going
My comment about the 17% is, you know, think about places like Oak Isle. Not 11. Restricted because there's a option one, how it could work. Home on Atlanta Avenue that was 100 by 120. Most of the trees that are there are just sappy pines. Definitely not saying we should do.
I'd just like to mention, I think that most of the builders on the island are already doing a good job. I'm sure there's some that aren't in real estate, so maybe I look at built the single family. I think people are trying to done a really good job back over there. So trying, and I think they're pulling it off. My point is, I think where they can, I know where the homes you build are too, and you're. One of the things I would worry about, everybody couldn't do it. If we came out with, I know some. Well, this thing got enacted.
I would not say that I would do that.
I wouldn't say that you would do it. If I may finish. I know that some people would do that because they would be afraid of the sellability of that lot.
The ramifications of it.
I think everybody, if you're not buying much of a house, if you're getting new construction down here, then you got to look somewhere like Carolina Sands. I think, Mike, you live over there. Not certain, but isn't the 25 foot? It's deeper. So I don't know what that does to. I don't know what that does to anybody's backyard, but I think there's bigger. I mean, I'm not saying don't do anything. I think we have to be cautious because, as John mentioned, the realtor, we have probably created a material fact by the way we've discussed this.
Well, I
the
think that's
kids
why
here.
it's just,
I mean, if my house,
What if it does have trees and you want to remove one?
oh, it, what would it accomplish to have a, somebody has to follow, what, because I think I'm hearing from the public environmental concerns as well as beautification. So what do we feel is conservation for environmental issues and historic, or demand that somebody plant a tree of enough room to grow? I guess that's what I'm throwing out. Well, what value? Of what value do my fellow commissioners?
Let's hear from the rest of us.
all right, I think,
Ms.
first of
Boswell.
all, the value would be the preservation is more so than the, let's just say everybody's got to plant the trees. But if we can preserve the ones that are already there. And as far as like the level playing field, I think they mean like a level playing field. Everybody's on the same level, not the existing structures. And then that's why it's up for discussion, because we can make recommendations on, we advise this or that. It doesn't mean they have to accept it. But I think we really can do something that is going to preserve the heritage trees on the island. And yes, option one is a little bit, I think with some tweaking, option two could be made possible.
Can you bring those options back up, Jeremy? Mr. Hoffer, I would love to hear any comments you have as well, so we get everybody's input.
Oh, I'm gonna say my.
And I was just kind of throwing these options out, not for, one, kind of one, maybe one extreme. Adopt the, complete ordinance, but
Like I do feel like the overstory trees, like we could put that into option two as far and as like the heritage trees. Add something with that.
Overstory tree, just so I understand the depth. Foot plus, okay. Birth of the tree is in the overstory section.
But the bottom still has
Right.
to have some.
So I've got a tree in my yard, for example,
So
that
what you think?
that's way too close to my house. Deck was built around it. Which was designed around it, which headed. Sometimes I think preserving may not always. Further out by the road.
It's a 10-foot circumference. Yeah, a tree, and that's what I was trying to get from you. If you are, as a builder, if I said leave that tree there, then how far are you going to have to? Because it says in on the option that we would have to be careful not to damage the roots. It even gets down in some of these towns, the root system, and how far you had to stay away from it. So it would really cause some changing, I think, in your.
I think we get back to the point we got a 5,000 square foot lot. Getting a new home on this island, unless, well, I guess there's a couple off Dow Road over there, but pretty much on these lots, if you're going to buy one of these lots, these 50 by 100 lots, you're probably, the average one now lists for 135. So you're not going to buy a house for less than, that just keeps going. That's what the price is. People are gonna want just by demand, just because they're pretty as they can out.
Any time down the road, or lots that a family owns to be divided into 5,000 and sold for as many as you can see, that any lot could be divided, or lots could be divided 5,000 and sold.
Our zoning ordinances don't allow that. We have specific areas that are by a lot
Currently
in the
we do,
R,
yes.
in the R3, you can't.
Currently we do, but that doesn't mean down.
No, anything could change, you're right.
Well, you know me, I'm a tree hugger anyway. So, just in talking to Jeremy and Ed, the requirements for building on these 5,000 square foot. If a canopy tree is in the middle of your lot, what are you going to do?
Question is, do we say?
At another
After the
location
fact.
after
After the
construction.
I mean, I don't think I could ever.
Well, I think we're stepping on property owners' property rights is what I'm in. As much as I'm
not opposed to having people plant some trees.
I'm not either.
I'm opposed to doing.
I'm just not sure about 17, only making an ordinance that 17% of the building lots left on the island.
Nan had a good point about that too. It's still 7.
Yeah.
You know, so I have a hard time saying that all 83% that have been able to build. Before this starts in, does that line?
I just think for the amount of money that people are spending, and I know maybe this just is an opinion. There's nothing empirical here for me to share with you. The amount of money people are spending. If you ride by my house, I've got 2 lots in the front and then another one. I have a ton of trees that I kept, and there were big ones. I kept all of them that I could, and I also planted some new ones. The only things I cut out were the kind of, I don't know what they were, I'm a tree person, but scrubby. Big tree in the back was a big maple tree. I saved it. I think when you get to a certain price point, and this island is there in that price point, people are going to want that anyway when they're spending that money. I've got a lot of trees in my yard. I know Ethan does, in his place. So, I just think people are going to do it. I'm not saying I'm right. That's just what I think from what I'm seeing. I don't have any evidence other than I can't imagine spending $450 to $550 and not having any.
You drive down to now, and that's some 5.
I think it depends on the area you're in, and the Wilmington Beach. To mine, they're mostly wooded lots. Not all of it's anything you can keep, though. Yeah. That's my point. Is that happen to be in the perfect location. You know.
So 17. Not a good number.
And the neighbor even asked me to cut it
trees
down,
we-
and I said no, I'm going to keep it.
But none of
Okay, well,
But, found a supplemental resource that's not in our packet.
like mitigating wetlands.
You could take it as an assessment, right? And, or it's not gonna survive.
Or potentially, if you don't want that tree at all, and for the replanting somewhere else. That I saved a lot of trees, more than anybody on my street, I'm sure, I think. But I did it because I wanted to.
It also gets complicated, and I keep going back to these 5,000 square foot lots, because really, most of what, if any, on a beach, I mean, you can concrete your want to put a pool back in the backyard, want to do this. That's allowed under our current building ordinance. You know, just there's so many moving parts to this whole. Complicated.
All right, my turn.
Right, I've been waiting on this.
Well, start by my bona fides. I don't know if anybody knows this, but in 5 years in Wisconsin, I planted about 9,000 trees. Did my first thing I'd say is I do think that the town needs a tree. It does. Zoning ordinance is one part of that. Keep that in mind. Yes, there's zoning, looking at what's going forward. Also got to look about what's the town. I don't know, I see some big lots that could definitely plant some trees that could grow in. It's unfair in a way to think about it, but the person who plants that tree probably isn't going to be around to enjoy it. But you got a big corner lot, you know, I would not necessarily be opposed to to encouraging people, you know, so existing homes, I mean, I can't make them. An area where the town could encourage it. All part of the policy, zoning order. Jeremy, can you do me a favor and pull up the 5? Heritage tree to me. old, beautiful, interesting. Essentially a heritage tree. You show up on a lot and it's got 24-inch live. Yeah, man, that's a heritage tree. Equal, you know, if it's a caliber 24-inch tree, that many to equal, you know, 12 2-inch trees. That's kind of really replace a tree like that because they're so old. But look, it's 17%. It might not apply to a lot of places. I would encourage an ordinance that protected those trees, but with get all of that. And it's so 5,000. Got your 7,000 square.
12.5.
12,000. An ordinance should be in place for those lots too. Now, libertarian in me doesn't want to do a big planting requirement on people. But protecting stuff that's all of us seems worth doing. Again, when you talk about heritage trees, that definitely has to be a focus on what type of trees. Not a big pine tree fan. You know, there's a lot of junk trees that do get fairly big that, you know, you could have an ordinance that specifies trees to go prior to getting the permit to start. I don't think you necessarily have to hire an arborist or a tree expert every time. You know, Miles could go out to a lot and take a look around and determine on, you know, visually if there's something there worth saving. If you're not sure, then maybe you have to bring somebody in who knows. Seems to be a solution in there somewhere. People don't always know. You know, like they might even know what's on there. Joe Tree Grinder, who that's a good one. I'd support that.
So can we, if we don't have to make this recommendation tonight, do we? Can
I
we
think
make
what we're
can we-
charged with is giving staff some sort of direction so that they can come back with something.
Well, could we have staff come back with some of the things we talked about with a more detailed
Yeah.
ordinance? Like this, it's just too broad. One's too broad for me. 2 needs to be tweaked. 3's just not even an option. But I think if they could come back with some of the things that we discussed tonight, with some of the options, especially like with the heritage tree, to maybe define the heritage trees more. And I agree with Mike, like a pine tree, as being an insurance agent, most of the time pine trees, they are a danger to the homes. But your heritage trees, they're a great benefit for flooding purposes, for drought purposes, for erosion. So I think we can really change this, but it needs to be more defined.
And I think we need, instead of just a broad Merriam-Webster's dictionary definition of a heritage tree, we need to know what is actually an indigenous tree on this island. We all know palm trees are not.
We do have a landscape list that lists out, and there's a lot of indigenous trees that are on the list, and
At the Maritime Forest, I mean, there might.
and that's how we got our tree list. Is there a tree other than a live oak that's a heritage tree?
Holly that grows.
I mean, the
When I
hardwood
wanna build a
trees,
pool,
they're
I might have
mainly
to
the
take that tree
hardwoods.
out.
Yeah,
But it's like,
there's
I think
a
gums that getting pretty big.
there's a many of kind, the cedar tree, the holly, special type of holly. I guess what I'm saying too is, I just don't want to stop with an option for an ordinance, because I still believe that we're addressing environmental issues with plastic bags. We don't have an ordinance for plastic bags. If we get one,
We're trying.
can we come back with something other than a ordinance that has to be patrolled?
I think that if we go, my opinion would be that if we option 2 being that we one, you start getting into how do you start getting into issues with things that make it super difficult to build, and I know that's probably not the top of some people's minds. Difficulties that you already have, not to mention in this. Next point.
Well, that's
And
why I say.
we have to show parking. So now who makes that decision? Does that go to Ed? Does that go all the way to the top of Mr. Kramer or to a mayor? Or who's making the decision that says that tree's in my way?
So maybe we could put that it's outside the footprint of the home.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just think all those things need to be taken into consideration.
And that's
My
when I
opinion.
say I think it should go back to staff to broader define it. And it seems like a lot of the commissioners would like to do more research on, because I've read the entire Oak Island tree ordinance, and I think
You
it's
understood
great.
it?
I did.
My mom and dad lived it. It's not that great. Ask them.
But I mean, I'm just saying we don't have to come back with as detailed as Oak Island, but I think if we can come back with something to preserve what we have, and then, like I said, they can put it in there where the overstory trees are if it's outside the footprint of the home. Or yes, the heritage
Only,
trees.
really.
I mean, if you want to just focus on heritage trees, I'm okay with that because I don't think I've seen one on a 5,000 square foot lot that wouldn't have to be taken down.
If they don't exist, they don't exist.
No, I mean, they might, but I mean, they would.
But
be in
they
the
still might
would
exist
definitely be in
on
the
the
footprint.
R3 lots and such,
Yes.
and this would apply to them too.
Yeah.
But I don't think I agree with that.
requiring me to.
Which doesn't mean that I'm against it just because it's
No,
harder
no,
to do. As I've stated, I try to save a tree on a lot if I can, anytime I can. It's not a nuisance or not a pine tree. I do try to.
Can't really put a 5,000 square foot lot and a 12,000 square foot lot in the same. Can't hold them to the same standard.
Yeah, but do we write ordinances for each different
Yeah.
zone?
Yeah, you can. Say
Not-
you're gonna have a different ordinance for
One
R3.
of them does.
Or, you know, it's one ordinance, but it's
The
text.
requirements are different.
Yeah, you know, you can specify what is required in R3 versus.
I just feel like
It's
they're
a
getting any
hard task
direction
for
out of
the
this,
people
Jeremy?
Who try to write it.
They do for a living.
Well, then could you do it like per square foot of lot? Say, you know, say like the one he read before where it had per 2,000 square foot of lot. That way you're not given the 5,000 square foot lot the same as the 12,000.
Body has to why don't we enforce some of the things? If you're not going to enforce it, then that's been the problem for years. Ordinances and not enforcing them. I want the person that comes back.
I'm getting from our group anyway. Or right down the middle on this. That are not stick palm trees, because I don't do that anymore either. They don't have as much room for doing that as a commercial building does. Commercial buildings can ask for waivers for that
Well,
as
you
well.
know, I think it would be worth looking at the commercial ordinance too. So, you know, the commercial lots, what do they plant? Palm trees and crepe myrtles. Wouldn't kill them to plant a tree that could grow into a canopy tree.
Or to save a
They
tree.
don't have
We
to
do
be
require
exempt
that,
from
don't
this
we?
discussion.
A lot of times it gets waived, but we do require
Yeah, for-
specific type of
Within
buffer
the buffer area
landscaping.
for every
Yes,
50 foot, you have to have a canopy.
we
Oh,
do
that's
have
it.
that in there. Yeah.
Doesn't seem like it. I just, where's the canopy tree at the Fort Food Lion Shopping Center? You know,
That's the
those
most
have been
beautifully
built since I've
landscaped
lived
lot
here.
on the
I don't
whole
see
island.
any canopy
Yeah, those
trees
are all
in there.
crepe myrtles. I don't think those are canopy
Yeah.
trees.
I mean,
They
I
can
think
become
it's like in
canopy.
the ordinance, but it gets waived every
They
time
can
or
become
something.
canopy.
Depends on how short you are, I guess.
You know,
Any one of them.
is the
Yeah.
Harris Teeter, are they planting canopy trees in there? They are?
But that was the,
That's a
I like
difficult
that.
road. I
In a
think.
mitigation
I think that's
form.
a difficult
I
road.
love that
Yeah.
option.
Where are you going to plant it?
It's
Around
I
the
mean,
lake,
what kind of common areas are we going to start?
the lake,
The lake.
the lake.
What kind of common areas are we
That
going
one's
to start
sticky
planting
to me
trees at?
too. I know.
Town hall?
Do you want a tree to
Ed,
Go as simple as 5,000 square foot lot, we want you to plant one tree
don't
that's
think-
going to turn into a canopy tree.
Yeah.
7,000 square foot lot?
I don't think-
Two.
Could this fall under the land use plan, which is getting ready to start?
That's where I would like to see us pursue.
Would that make sense?
I was
to
gonna
consider
actually suggest
incorporating that.
that maybe this is bigger than just us saying, hey, come back with an ordinance that says this. I think this is more of something that the town needs to get involved with, maybe have some workshops, maybe have some education on some of the things that Ethan said I don't even understand.
I don't know that we're going to be able to come back and get it right. It'll
one
probably
sitting.
be
Right.
it'll probably be several sittings. So I
can
think it would
can we
be
maybe
good.
suggest that we move forward with moving forward? I don't know how to put it. Moving forward, but in a pace that says we can get it right the first time.
But to Ethan's point and some of the things he said, if a lot of it is commercial and then we've got the residential, could we pull it into the land use plan where it really gets and rather making this ordinance, whether we do it really well or we almost get what we should have gotten, can you use it as part of the land use plan, which we're getting ready to do? So we're not.
Are we getting ready
So
to
we're
do
not
it?
piecemealing.
We've been getting ready to do it for a long time. so.
We have advertised
They've advertised for,
request for
I don't wanna put
proposals.
it
But
off
how
that
many
long.
lots are going to be left by that time?
And the streetscape, that's and what didn't work. And those trees, the landowners or homeowners to put more trees. It just so it's a standardization, and that you doing. And it's proven that they do.
And what is the town's plan for? I'm sorry I didn't make it to that Harper Avenue thing, even though I have some property on Harper. Is the town going to add trees along Harper as
still
far as
working on
part
it.
of the
That w-
Working on that.
streetscape?
What we did was hired Kimley Horn, who's traffic engineer and planning, and we said we don't want to tell you what our streetscape will look like. We want our community to tell us what our streetscape should look like. And green space, Jerry was there, was a very important for the folks that came, and I think we had every business show up, and about we had 2 days of it. It was July 31st and the 1st. And the sit-down meetings, we had about 20 folks, and it was open all day. So I had to run get them lunch because they were busy all day long. You know, it wasn't a lot of people, but there was people coming in and out all day long.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was a common theme is make sure you have green space preserved on those right-of-ways.
Well, that just seems like it even more ties into the land use plan. So my question is, can this be part of the land use? Would it make sense? I know it can. Would it make sense to have it as part of land?
It would, on the way I would envision it would be, we would have policies in the land use plan and discussions throughout that process. It's probably about a year process, and then we take those policies and then put those into a code.
I think that we can get it done sooner.
Oh, yeah,
We don't
that's-
need to wait on the land use plan, in my opinion. I do think that we maybe need more education or workshops or something, and maybe that's something we can ask council to direct on how to go about doing it so that we don't rush through an ordinance just to have an ordinance to preserve trees. I just don't think that waiting an entire year process of the land use and then working on an ordinance, you know, now we're a year and a half down the road.
Not what we said, that's not what.
Problem with that is on the right of way and a lot of those homes is there's power lines.
Well, I think we're here because council addressed this issue with town staff because the ordinance that's in place or the lack of ordinance is not working. The encouragement of it, it's not been working. So over a year from now, how many more lots are going to be clear cut?
Is that a fact, Ed? It was, the council at large?
That's what it said in here.
Oh, okay.
Or
Oh, I
not
thought
at
I
large.
thought it was a
I
council.
thought it was one
I thought it was a
council
member.
council person.
Yeah, I said a council member.
Yeah, Councilman Garza asked, I think it was a non-agenda, asked us to, P and Z to look at this issue.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, ordinance gonna still allow for some clear cutting to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's what some people are just losing their lunch when they drive by that lot and see that it all got torn down, and they don't quite realize that the first place.
I did ride my bike about 15 or 20 miles today, just looking at some of the vacant lots that are back in the R3 area. And I think there's some beautiful trees back there, but I think a lot of it's undergrowth and overgrowth of vines. And so you really don't know what you have on those lots until you go out there and you walk the lot. I think that we need to proceed with something. I'm just not sure we can wait a year for a land use plan.
I would recommend, if everybody's okay with that, we let staff bring forward to council even next week and ask if we can move forward, maybe having some public workshops and getting some better input, and
As well as
letting
the
the
public.
staff educate themselves better on what would be the best direction to go, whether it's and in certain ways, or we bring it all together and really have a cohesive that says this is what public input is.
And I,
We do not.
That sound reasonable?
all 4 workshops get more public input.
I mean, I think that's something this have actual, real. Like to hear from the public at large and have more education from professionals,
And from property owners.
property owners.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I don't think there's any harm in hearing what was been said tonight and trying to put together an start taking a stab at it. I'm fine. Start fiddling around with it. Start trying to put something together that
I think some
would apply to us.
combination is definitely feasible.
I think if you're going to do that, you have to, we have to define what we're going to do. Are we just talking about undeveloped lots, or are we talking about the town at large?
Those are the details I think a workshop.
And
Yeah.
are we
Yeah.
talking about a house like mine, and maybe I want to put a pool in and have to tear a tree down? So does that matter? And then if we do that, what about, do we look at different requirements for commercial, which is most of the vacant land? And if we do that, do we do industrial? Which I think the industrial section is crossed out, isn't
About
it?
70 acres.
70 acres, yeah. So we got to be careful not to pick one spot and do it, and then we don't really do anything anywhere else. Otherwise, we're not doing much. I think it's huge. I think
Ed,
it's a big-
on council, was there, or was this just something that freaked out of the sky and said, oh, well, let's let these people? Was there a need? Or-
No, I haven't had
I mean,
specific conversations with Councilman Garza. I know he's very interested in having some tree preservation, but I don't know all the outside of giving us direction at the council meeting.
okay, so, and he did not he did not say we,
I believe he did say that, looking at folks are clear cutting lots, there would be some preservation for those trees when we're
so that's our charge is tree preservation on.
well,
not
yeah,
asked to do this,
I don't want to put
Vote
words
on
in his
this.
mouth. I think he wants a general discussion, though. I don't think
I think we've had a great discussion here tonight, and I think this is an excellent start. And Ethan, again, I thank you for the time that you put into it. Wrapped up that moving forward, we need to ask council maybe for further direction with our suggestion that we open it up to a workshop with staff, with maybe the best angle to
I think
get
that's
where we want to be with
excellent.
saving trees and planting trees and helping our environment.
I think that's an excellent idea because we don't know even now if the council would vote for us to, it was non-agenda. If they can formalize it a little bit and ask us to something they'd like us
Yeah.
to do, I think it. 5 times and figure out.
Work super hard on putting something together and they shut it down.
That's my
Right.
point.
Which has
Right.
happened to us before.
Man, if you really want something to happen too, if you do it this way, you're going to bring more light to it.
Yeah.
Don't
Even
make
though
all-
we're not voting, is all in.
I agree.
That sound good?
Yeah.
One more for one
Sure.
caveat. I think another
Yeah, it's on our website, isn't it? Tree.
Can you just
Landscape.
email us a link to that page?
I'd just be interested in seeing.
It also defines kind of what is a canopy tree, what is an understory tree.
All right. Are we good with that topic? All right.
I do.
Go ahead.
Ed, I need you to make balloon animals at the bike rodeo again this year, please.
Let's see, what's the date on that? Is that September
8th.
8th?
Balloon animals for the bike.
Ed makes balloon animals.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I have
Thank
a
you,
non-agenda
Ethan.
item.
Thank you.
So, code enforcement officer quit.
Chris.
He quit. Okay.
He took a job back in there.
Who's up for going out and doing a illegal sign sweep? You go up to the intersection around Lake Park. There's like 8 or 9 illegal signs. Home for sale, Christmas trees.
I would love to see us
How
go
about
for
just buzz out there and pick the crap out of it right away, man? It's litter. If there was a bag of trash laying in the right of way, somebody from operations department would go pick it up, right?
And I've had talks with operations, and they are helping with signs, but we just don't have an
Pick
extra
'em up.
resource to do it right now.
I would like to see them look for street signs that are missing because they're missing all over this island that you don't know what intersection you're at.
Let me know, and I can get those up.
I mean, I know what intersection I'm at, but I'm like, well, where's the street sign?
We are going through, and you've probably seen and replacing a lot of the blades. You look on Dow Road, and a lot of the blades they have
made it
larger
bigger and
font.
easier to
They're
read.
much
Yeah,
nicer
yeah, I
on
like
Dow
that.
Road, yeah.
Down
So-
through Wilmington Beach, though, there's a few intersections that are completely missing street signs. I think it was Cape Fifth or one of those, and I know we're building and constructing down through there, so maybe that's.
And there is a method to replacing them. I mean, we
I just
we
don't think to
budgeted.
call anybody when I notice it because I'm talking to somebody else on it.
Okay. yeah, let me know, and I can get those replaced. But we did budget to replace a certain number last year and then again this year. So they are being turned over. But if there's one missing, that's different.
Yeah.
We need to know that.
One point, I think a year or two ago,
We actually did bring that back to town council, and there was a pattern on how those stop signs were implemented.
Mm-hmm.
And Carolina Sands kind of interrupted the pattern there, but they
So there was a method.
there was a method,
Always that.
and
It didn't seem like it.
and we ended up making some modifications to bring back that original method, and we added some signage. I could go back and find that
No, I was just curious.
presentation if you
Because it seemed to never go anywhere after we talked about it the one time as a board.
It did. Mr. Kramer presented that to council. It's been a couple years
Yeah.
ago.
Okay.
Hey, with all the rain, has that caused any delays on the bike path? You know, that we were
It
talking about a
has.
September date probably of getting open. Will that be pushed back by any chance because of the rain?
There will be some. I don't have a date for you, but all of our projects have been delayed. I'm sure on private side too, with the weather. And last 3 weeks, I've done almost nothing other than work with stormwater issues with folks that are.
I don't doubt it.
So that's been a big. That's basically all we've been working, or I've been working on. You guys hadn't even seen me for the last few weeks.
Ed, is there any update on the Pleasure Island Plaza? What's going on with that?
Federal Point.
Federal Point Plaza.
Oh, they have applied for their demolition permit, and I saw an email today. We gave them a bunch of comments where I don't know if they said they've addressed all our comments. So
I think they've got one tenant left, maybe one or two.
they're moving forward to the demolition.
Okay.
So yeah, the court case is still
It's still
ongoing,
pending, so we could have the.
potentially.
Somebody's going to build a grocery store on one of those lots.
Right, that's what I'm saying, they're just prepared.
I think Harris Teeter's vested right ends in April
For their CUP.
for their
It's
CUP.
been a while.
So they're
What do you have, 3 years to start?
2.
2 years
Two
to
under
submit
zoning,
permit?
unless you ask for a site-specific development plan, which they did not. So, which could give you up to 5 years. So yeah, once their vesting ends, I would think that their court case would end. But I'm not an attorney,
It's
so
confusion, the public sees something happen. Owners are just doing.
they want to move forward. Yes.
I think everybody except the fireplace guy, and I guess there's a person beside him. I've never been in the place. Pardon me?
Yeah, the framing.
One of those two, and I haven't been in, so I'm not an expert on them, but I understand that they're both
He's moved.
trying crazy to find places because their leases are,
Tip Top's
Done.
got a place.
they do.
Mm-hmm.
They're moving into the old Bryant.
Yep, O'Brien.
A couple of them have moved off the island already. All right, any other? Go, Pam.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.